Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 6 of my 2024 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be making a card using Mama Elephant's The Nutcracker, Busy Elves, and Cozy Christmas. So I've stamped those images on Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I am starting with my little girl's skin, and I'm going to use E000, E00, and E11. Starting with the E11 and laying in some shadows up under her hairline, at her neck, and then on the sides of her hands. I went back and forth trying to decide if I wanted to do her legs as bare legs or if I wanted to give her some little stockings. I ultimately decided to go with stockings. But I did my Sugar Plum Fairies skin in the same combo, blending out that E11 with the E00, and then I'll add in a nice highlight with the E000, and I am going to give my Sugar Plum Fairy some stockings as well. Then I'll throw a little bit of this into the inside of my Mouse King's ears, and I'll also add it to his hands and feet. Same combo, starting with the E11, blending out with the E00, and then using the E000. And then for my Nutcracker, I'm going to change his skin to a slightly darker combo by taking away the E000 and adding in the E13. I also wanted his nose to be just a little bit darker, so I colored that in solid with the E13. And then I'm going to color the small Nutcracker doll in Clara's hand to match the large Nutcracker beside her, since they look identical. And then I'm going to move on to my Mouse King, and I'm going to use some warm grays for him. I'm using W00, W1, W3, and W5. Starting with the W5 at the base of his ears and up on his head under that crown, and then down the back of his head. I'll also give a little shadow under the open part of his cape, and then I'll start blending that out with the W13, just making sure to go over the edge of the previous shade and kind of pull it into the next one so that it eliminates any harsh lines and he looks nice and soft. I think he's really cute, even though he is the bad guy in the Nutcracker story. I just think he's drawn very sweetly. His face looks so innocent. Then I blended out with the W1, and I still left a little bit of a highlight since he is a larger image on the lower part of his face and the bottom of his belly and the tops of his ears. I added in that W00. I also added a little of the W1 and W00 into his ears. And I forgot to color in his tail, so I did that off screen and then added a little bit of shading to the base of that as well, where it's kind of tucked up under his cape. Then I'm going to work on my Nutcracker's hair and mustache and beard. And now I am starting with the W3, blending out with the W1, and then I'll use the W00 for a highlight, but I'm staying close to the inner edges of everything and leaving some extra plain white cardstock for extra highlight because I wanted his hair to look white, just have a bit of depth and dimension to it. And then I'm going to color the little rocking horse to match. So starting with the W3, blending out with the W1, and then I'll use the W00. And I'm going to come back and add a little extra detail to him in just a second. Then I'm going to darken up this combo, keeping the W3 and the W5, but adding in the W7, and I will do my Nutcracker's boots. I also forgot to color the tiny Nutcracker's hair on camera, so I did that off screen later on. And then I'm just trying to decide which parts of his little uniform I wanted to be black. I decided to give him some black buttons and also a black belt. So just adding those. Well, it's actually a dark kind of charcoal gray, but I wanted the color palette today to be mostly pastels, and then I'm also going to have a vibrant red mixed in, but I thought that the kind of charcoal gray would go nicely with the pastel tones of the color palette. So that's why I went a little bit lighter. If you wanted to go darker, you could add in the W9. So I'm just blending out those little elements on his uniform and matching that up with the Nutcracker doll. And then I'm going to come in and add some spots to my rocking horse, starting with that W7, just picking a few little places to add those. And I'll blend out around the edges with the W5, trying to make the dots a bit irregular so they look more realistic as they would on a real horse. Obviously it's not a realistic horse since it's a toy, but anyway. So I added 5 little dots, and then I decided I wanted one more really small one right by the saddle, so I did that as well. And then I am also going to do the rocking horse's mane and tail in this charcoal gray. So I just made sure to add a little extra of that W7 so it looked nice and dark. Then I'm moving on to the little girl's hair in the Nutcracker Ballet. Her name is Clara. So coloring Clara's hair brown using E51, E53, E55, and E57. And a lot of times when I color hair, I start with my lightest shade, but since these images are quite small and they are a bit more simply drawn, I just went in straight with my darkest shade, which is the E57. And I'm just making sure to add a few little dark areas so that we have some nice contrast. And then I'm blending out with the E55. I want to make the parts that are kind of pushed up towards the light more shiny, so that's where I'm placing my highlights with the E53 and then finally the E51. Then I'm going to color the Sugar Plum Fairy's hair the same. And the Sugar Plum Fairy is interesting. I've seen people color her in different ways, where part of her hair or what looks like her hair could be a hat. And then sometimes it's more than others. So I just kind of went in the middle. I did the front 2 pieces as her hair and then the side piece as her hair. And then the part on top is going to be part of her hat for her costume. Then I'm going to bring in RV10 and RV11 for some rosy cheeks on everybody. I'm even going to add it to the rocking horse because he just needed a little extra color. And so using that RV11 for a little oval on the cheek area and then blending out around the edges of that with the RV10 to soften it into the skin or the fur, whichever the case may be. I'll also color in the Mouse King's nose and add a little bit of that pink to his inner ears and to his little paws and his tail. And just give it a little bit of a pinky touch to it. And then I am going to bring in RV00 and do my Sugar Plum Fairy's dress. So I'm starting with the RV11 and adding that toward the back of the bodice and toward the waistline of the petal skirt. And then blending out with the, well, I thought it was the RV10. It turned out it was the RV00. The cap looked darker, so I just automatically reached for it as the mid-tone. But then I did go back and use the RV00, and then I did a second layer of all 3 shades just to deepen that up a little bit. And that time I added that RV10 as the mid-tone and used the RV00 as the highlight. And then I also wanted to give her little stockings that were really pale, so I used the RV00 for that. I'm going to use all 3 shades for part of her little flower that is attached to her head, her little hairband. And then I am going to give Clara a pink bow on top of her head as well. So using all 3 shades for that and just concentrating the color in the center where the fabric is gathered, and then the highlight on the edges where it would be like bowed out so it would catch more light. And the same thing with the bow at the neckline of the Mouse King's cape. And then I'm going to do one of these little gifts in a pink wrapping paper, starting with the shadows down at the bottom of both the box and its lid, and then blending upward. And then for another one of the gifts, a slightly different style with the ribbon on the side, that one I'm going to do pink as well. And then I am also going to give a little touch of pink to my Nutcracker, just with like the little kind of shirt that's underneath his coat. Just wanted to have like a little touch of pink there. I didn't do it on the doll because it doesn't have that little detail there, but I did also give Clara some pink stockings for her legs. Then I'm switching to a red combo using R24, R29, and R39, and I'm going to do the Mouse King's cape, adding my shadows up under the fluffy part of the trim and then on the underside of his sleeve, and then blending out with the R29, which is just such a vibrant and beautiful shade, and then adding a nice highlight with that R24. And I want there to be a good bit of red on this card because it's going to kind of tie a lot of things together. So I'll do the Nutcracker's coat, just carefully coloring around those buttons, adding my shading in with that R39, using the very tip of that marker, holding it more straight up and down so I can get in all those little areas around the details of his uniform. And then I will blend that out. Rather than kind of skipping around, I'm just going to do one thing at a time since I am working around little details that I don't want to mess up. So just concentrating on him first, using the R24 to fill in any remaining areas of that jacket. And then of course I will do the little Nutcracker's jacket to match. I think that is such a cool detail that the tiny Nutcracker matches exactly the larger Nutcracker, or very close to exactly. It's just a fun little detail, and that's why I decided to go with this particular Nutcracker for this card, rather than, there's 2 others in the stamp set, but I wanted him to match. By the way, when I came up with the idea for this card, I actually came up with 2 different card ideas, and I was going to do another 2 cards in one video. But then I quickly realized that the coloring for just one of these cards was going to just take too long in the video to do 2 cards. It would have been at least a 45-minute video. So I ended up not filming this second card, but if you guys would be interested in seeing me do that other card using this same stamp set, let me know down in the comments and I would be happy to film that for you guys. So I'm just going around and doing a few more of the accessory images here, and I'm also going to do the brim on the hat of the Nutcrackers in this red combo. And then I also did Clara's buttons on her dress and her shoes in red. And then I'm going to switch to aqua blue, and I'm using BG quadruple 0, BG10, and BG11, and that is what I'm going to use for Clara's dress. Adding that shading along the outside edges under her Nutcracker doll, on the bottom of her sleeve, also coloring in her shoes or slippers to match, and then blending out with the BG10 and using the BG quadruple 0 for a highlight. I will give my Nutcracker some aqua pants to match Clara, just very quickly doing that, and the doll and the little pom-pom on top of the hat. So everything matches identically, which I think is really cute. I am going to do the trim on my Mouse King's cape and also the sleeves on the Nutcracker's uniform in just BG10 and BG quadruple 0, so it looks kind of white but just has a bit of a lighter glow, because I didn't want to use gray since the mouse was already gray, so I just decided to go with the aqua. I'm also going to use those same two shades for my fairy's wings and just leave some white space on all of those items so it doesn't look too blue. I did the ribbon on the red gift down at the bottom in aqua, and then I'm doing the wrapping paper on the top gift with the pink bow in that combo. So we have little echoes of that shade throughout the card. And then I am going to do the saddle on my rocking horse as well. So little touches here and there. Then for my Christmas tree, I wanted to go with something that was a more cool toned green so that it wasn't too distracting from the color palette, since there's not going to be very much green on this card. I didn't want it to stand out too much. So I ended up going with G quadruple 0, G00, and G02. And I'm adding that G02 at the bottom of each of the layers of the Christmas tree and then blending up with the G00. It's going to be really soft and pale too, which I think just suits the color palette of these images. I wanted that red to be the really only bright pop and everything else just to be a little bit more subdued. I will also do the rest of the Sugar Plum Fairies little flower crown with these same combos. And then I will switch to some pale yellows. I'm using Y000, Y02, and Y06 for the Mouse King's crown and the star on the two Nutcrackers helmets, and then also the star on the Christmas tree. And again, I just wanted that to be really pale because I didn't want it to be in your face. I just wanted it to be an accent detail. So just quickly coloring those, and then I am going to add the yellow as well to the, I forget what they're called on, is it epaulets on the shoulders of the Nutcracker? But anyway, you know what I mean. So I did those as well. And then I grabbed a black Sakura Jelly Roll pen, got that going off to the side, and went over the eyes of all of my images that have their eyes open. It just makes them nice and bright and shiny again. And then I trim these images out with their matching dies. So next I'm going to choose some pattern papers. I'm using the Mintay Merry Joy Add-on paper pack. And I'm going to choose 3 different prints. One is going to be my focal panel, and then the other 2 are going to go on my card base. So I was going back and forth between these 2 snowflake prints for the focal panel, and I think either one of them would have looked really beautiful. But I am stamping my sentiment directly on the background, so I ended up going with this snowflake print. I thought it was just a little bit more subtle, and so it wouldn't compete as much with the sentiment. So these are the 3 that I'm going to be using. I have trimmed down the snowflake print with the second largest of the large stitch rectangle stackables from Lawn Fawn, and my sentiment is going to be from the Mama Elephant Scripty Christmas stamp set. I'm stamping that in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I chose the one that just says Merry Christmas. I needed a sentiment that was just about that size, and this one is going to fit perfectly. I did stamp that down twice to make sure it was nice and bold, and then just press the center of the Christmas word down again to make sure I had full contact with that ink on the paper. And then I'm adding my card base to my Misty. I'm using some MFT Snow Cone cardstock, and the ink is Lawn Fawn Merman. And I am stamping a sentiment from that same Scripty Christmas stamp set, and then one of the other Nutcrackers from the Nutcracker stamp set. And I didn't get a great impression the first time, so I am cleaning off those stamps again I had already cleaned them off once, but they were brand new. I'd never used either of those before, those images or that sentiment. And so sometimes there's just some residue from the manufacturer that is a little bit tricky to get off. So I used a little scrubber to get it off, and then I inked that up again twice more until I was happy with the results. The rest of my pattern papers I just trimmed down with my paper trimmer. The red and white plaid is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so the same exact size as my A2 standard size card, and I'm going to glue that to cover the entire card front. Just smooth that down into place, and then this musical note paper I'm going to run across the center, just making sure that I put it down straight. So I'll add that, and then I also cut down a piece of vellum just to add another level of interest to the card, and I'm adding some liquid glue only to the center where that is going to be covered up by the focal panel, and then I'll line that up on the card and smooth that down into place, make sure that that glue is well adhered. And then I'm going to take that focal panel, add some foam tape to the back of it to give it some dimension, and then I'll pop that up in the center of all of my layers of pattern paper and vellum. Just smooth that into place, and then I can bring in my images. Because the layout that I had envisioned needs everything to kind of fit together just so, I am going to lay out almost all of my images ahead of time and make sure that I have the space that I need before I start gluing things down. So all of the larger images, except for the gifts, I went ahead and laid down first, and then I also did one of the gifts because I knew that the placement of that was going to be kind of crucial to what I needed to glue down first. And so now that I have everything kind of spread out how I want it, I will start gluing things down, working my way back to front. So first the Sugar Plum Fairy, which is going to go down at the bottom right, and then I'll add this pink gift with the red ribbon, and then over top of that I'm going to have this rocking horse. And I want it to partially overlap both the Sugar Plum Fairy and the gift. So I'm just positioning that where I want it, giving myself a few seconds to adjust that image before that glue adheres permanently. And then I will add my Mouse King. And I needed to slide him down because I don't want him covering up the C in the word Christmas. I want my sentiment to be legible. And so next I'm going to adhere my Christmas tree to make sure that that goes above the little flourish on the Y in Merry. Then I'll do my Nutcracker image over on the top left. And then I'm going to add one of the other gifts kind of tucked underneath the crown and ear of the Mouse King and over the boot of the Nutcracker. Then I'm going to add Clara in between the Nutcracker and the Christmas tree, and the final gift will go between her and the Christmas tree. And it took me a few seconds to kind of adjust that. I didn't know if I wanted the gift behind her or in front of her, but I didn't want it covering up her Nutcracker doll. So I shifted that a little bit down and then realized that it wouldn't really cover the Nutcracker doll, so I wanted that in front again. So I just switched that quickly while that glue was still wet, and then I ended up sliding Clara over just slightly as well, a little bit to the right. So next I wanted to add a few little embellishments to just add some extra festive sparkle. So I took some clear sequins and spread those around in 2 different sizes on the card, just a little sprinkle here and there. And I'm gluing those down with my Barely Art Precision craft glue, picking them up with my Studio Katia embellishment wand. And then I let those dry for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then I'm going to fill in the holes of the sequins with some Stardust Stickles. Just adds a little extra sparkle, and then I'll also add it to some of the accessory images like the star on the Christmas tree. I put it on Clara's bow and her stockings, the bows on the Christmas gifts, the gold parts of the Nutcracker's outfit, and then the crown of the Mouse King and also the little bow. I'm going to put it on the saddle of the rocking horse and the stockings and the wings of the Sugar Plum Fairy. So lots of sparkle on this one, and I'm just using my fingernail to kind of clean up any of that stickles that goes over the black lines. And that is going to finish this card up. So I'll lift it up so you can see all of the detail and catch some of that sparkle and shine and give you another peek at the inside. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. Also, let me know if you'd like to see the other card that I had come up with using this stamp set. If you enjoy my videos, please don't forget to subscribe. It really helps me out, and ring that notification bell if you want to be alerted when I post new videos. The products I use will be listed and linked in the description bar below in case you'd like to pick up anything for yourself. And if you'd like to keep watching, here is day 6 of the previous 2 years of holiday card series. I really hope you guys had a good one today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye-bye.